So while we are waiting for new Herpa Wings releases to come out, we are taking the time to look back at earlier releases to find out if they are a blast from the past or a model better left behind. Which one we have in this case, we'll find out right after the drop. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where today we'll take a closer look at an Airbus A330-300 of Garuda Indonesia. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the retro branding of Garuda Indonesia. As this model was released in a time where Herpa at least partially still cared about the box design, we do still get a lovely image of the aircraft model inside, and we can see it is a limited edition. But no other information, no links that don't work anymore, just plain and simple an image and the specification of it being a limited edition. And here she is, the Airbus A330-300 of Garuda Indonesia in the airline's retro livery, introduced in the celebrations of the airline's 70th anniversary. The model itself was released by Herpa Wings in 2019, and while Herpa has never been known to add a plethora of details to their aircraft models, back in 2019 that was before they started adding just a few more printed details, so really at the worst possible time for an Herpa model to be released, because you just got the absolute bare minimum. But what did they do with this aircraft model? We will find out by taking a closer look at it, starting off with the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer have the retro livery and branding of Garuda Indonesia. On the fuselage we then have the writing of Garuda Indonesia and the full registration code of the aircraft. Towards the very tail of the aircraft we also find a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. If we then move along the cheat line all the way to the front of the aircraft, we can see we have the Indonesian flag. And we find the writing of Indonesian Airways just above the cheat line. Underneath the cheat line, around the cockpit section, we find a bit more writing. And what this says is brand logo 1969 to 1985, basically specifying the time period this branding was in use with the airline. Now, apart from that and the cheat line, some other details we find around the cockpit section are the cockpit windows. Now, I am barely able to make out if they have actually added window wipers. Honestly speaking, I don't really think so, but it is not quite clear, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say Herpa has added window wipers here. So how about the engine nacelles? Well, they have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but we do have the silver leading edge printed on. But again, that is also the only printed detail we are getting here, which is a huge shame because of the white nacelles. It would have been quite lovely to have just a few printed safety markings or stuff like that, which would have elevated the model quite a bit. But the physical detailing, well, this is where Herpa succeeds with this aircraft model, because the engines do look really rather nice. So how about the wings? Well, we will also take a closer look at them to see what they have to offer, starting off with the top side. Here we have the different flaps, slats and spoilers carved out, a little bit drowned away by the grey base color of the wings, but we do have the full registration code of the aircraft, which we also find on the underside of the wing alongside more physical detailing. Of course, we also have winglets, which have been colored in according to the livery, and I think Herpa has done a fairly decent job with that. Then we have the landing gear. That is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all the Airbus A330 aircraft models. Nothing much to say other than it looks just fine. The only real thing that is missing here is, of course, some printed details, but as we don't get many on the aircraft model, why would we find them on the landing gear? On the belly of the aircraft we do have a hole in the fuselage for a stand, which is not included with this aircraft model, but it doesn't destroy any printed details. What a surprise. So at least that. And then, finally, and last but not least, we do have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft, and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A330-300 in the retro 17th anniversary livery of Garuda Indonesia from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? I mean, I'm sure you won't be surprised when I'm saying that I'm not hugely impressed by this aircraft model. Let's start with the positives. I mean, the A330 mode of Herpa Wings is pretty solid. I think they're doing quite well with that. The physical detailing of the aircraft itself is quite good. Now, on a personal note, I'm not a huge fan of this livery. I actually think it looks pretty horrendous, but that is really just my personal taste, and that can be different from collector to collector. But it is just so deprived of any details. The only printer detailing we have, apart from the really most basic things like cockpit windows or cabin windows, well, is the livery itself, and as that isn't really hugely spectacular, and Herpa hasn't put any other efforts into the aircraft model, well, I guess then you won't be surprised to hear that I did not buy the aircraft model when it was newly released. In fact, I only got it a few months back, and was basically thrown after me with a first-hand retail price of far under 20 euros, which just means that if you can get such a model first-hand at such a low price, it just never has sold well. And given the state of the model, I'm not very surprised about that. Still, there will of course be people that just love this airline or the livery or both, and for them it could be a nice aircraft model to have in one's collection, and now you at least have a review of it so you can make up your own mind if you want to have such a model in your collection or not. Now with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like. If you're new around here, why not hit subscribe? And with that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.